Bexley event. I hope everyone's happy with it, so don't leave the meeting. I hope you don't mind being recorded. We're recording today because it's our first event, the Creative Bexley, which is our cultural education partnership for Bexley. And Odyssey Trust for Education is the lead partner for Creative Bexley. And I will tell you a little bit more about Creative Bexley shortly, but today is very much about, it is Artsmark Celebration Week. So it's really exciting that we are beginning our journey in our schools. But we are also hopefully going to become a support network for those schools in Bexley that are beginning their Artsmark journey, or they're doing it already. So today's agenda really is a chance for us to say hello to each other. So if you want to write in the chat who you are, what school you're at, that would be brilliant, so we can start to make some connections. But the agenda for today, you're going to hear from Lynn from A New Direction. She's going to talk a bit about A New Direction's role in supporting schools through the Artsmark. And I'm going to tell you a little bit now just about Creative Bexley, this cultural education partnership for Bexley. And also you're going to hear from Naomi Lord, who's going to join us at 4 o'clock. Naomi's at a school in Bolton. So not super local, but it is a platinum school. She's achieved Artsmark Platinum, so she's going to tell us a bit about our journey, her journey, and hopefully the journey we're going to go on. And there'll be a chance for us to ask questions of Lynn and a chance to ask questions of Naomi too. So I'm introducing myself. So I'm essentially the strategic lead for Creative Bexley, but I'm also the Director of Arts and Culture for Odyssey Trust for Education. Sam, do you want to introduce yourself at this point before I say about Bexley Creative?
Yeah, can people hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So I can't actually see myself now because I'm sharing the screen. Hello there. I am Sam Harding. I am the coordinator for the Creative Bexley local cultural education partnership. So I've been here for a month now, I think. I'm a month in. So helping Stephen with coordinating the operational aspects and communications for the partnership. So it's lovely to see everyone here. I think I might have seen some of you in previous meetings before, but if not, I think this is a lot of people's first time meeting. So hello there, and thank you very much for coming this afternoon.
Yeah, brilliant. Do you want to go to the next slide, Sam? And I can just show you. So CEP, Creative Cultural Education Partnerships, there must be over 100 of these now in the UK. They are, so it's a key mechanism for the Arts Council, as well as there's various iterations of these things. They don't exist in a standard way, cultural education partnerships. There are various models. Ours is obviously, we are the lead partner based in an educational setting, but some are based in cultural organisations or local authorities. But there's no formal agreement between us. We're just a group of cultural partners. So you can see the logos here of all the organisations which form part of Creative Bexley, who want to work together to strengthen arts and cultural education in an area. So we were really keen in Bexley to start to come together as a group of organisations, look at how we can support each other to work with and for schools. So early days, we've had a year of development. And in our first year, we had a youth consultation. So we commissioned an organisation called Sound Connections to do consultation with young people across Bexley. We had nearly 1,000 responses, which doesn't feel a lot for a borough with nearly 80,000 young people, but it was double the usual amount of responses Sound Connection said they get. And so that process is nearly complete. So by hopefully middle of December, the consultation process will be complete. We have had, thanks to Howard, he was involved in one of the focus groups. We've had a focus group with young people from King Henry. We had one at Townley Grammar School, and we're having 4 other focus groups of young people, organisations and various communities across Bexley. And taking into account the 1,000 responses to a survey, the 6 focus groups, that will inform some of the work that the Cultural Education Partnership will do in terms of what we, the kind of strategic priorities. And it looks like from the interim findings, one big priority for our CEP is helping young people and our schools know the cultural offer of the borough. So making sure they're fully aware of what are the organisations out there, how they can support us in our schools, and what programs might be funded, what opportunities you might have to pay for. But certainly that's one big piece of work for the CEP, is to amplify the opportunities for young people, because 2/3 of young people in our consultation said they didn't know where arts and culture happened in Bexley. That's nearly 700 young people. So it's quite important we tackle that, but also we want to look at how can we bring teachers together. So just as today, we brought a group of us together to start to connect us, to share practice, to be that support network for each other, but also to broker that conversation between our cultural partners and our schools so we can start to make work together. And also we want to look at how can we support young people to develop the leadership and have a say in what the cultural organisations do in Bexley. So we're looking at launching a youth board. I know it's very trendy to do that, but I think it's important we do that as a way of building on the consultation. But soon we'll have a newsletter going out. So Sam might post a link in the chat as a prompt for Sam for you to sign up to our newsletter, because we are compiling opportunities for schools from our partners and beyond. So if you've not signed up for the newsletter, do sign up and encourage your friends and colleagues to do so too. That newsletter will share some of the opportunities that you can take advantage of as a school, or for your young people and for teachers as well, because the LSET, this culture education partnership, wants to support teachers with their professional development. So any insights and any needs, we're going to be keen to hear from the schools in the borough. So today is pretty much, we want to celebrate Artsmark Celebration Week. And I think what's next on the agenda, Sam? And this is why we've got today's event, really, because some schools are starting their Artsmark journey, some are already on it. But what's next, Sam?
So the next step is Lynn from A New Direction, who is the Artsmark officer for A New Direction, will now speak about the various resources and support available for schools in Bexley. Lynn, are you there?
I am absolutely here, and thank you very much for the lovely introduction. I have some slides. I'm not sure if you've embedded them into your presentation, or yes, you have. It's fantastic. I'll probably end up doing a sort of Chris Whitty with the next slide, please, kind of thing, because I think you have control. Well, that's fine. It's lovely to be here virtually in Bexley. I think I know some of you already. And what I certainly don't want to do in my short space at this meeting is go over stuff you already know. So some of these slides that I've brought with me, I'm going to kind of skip through fairly quickly to give opportunities for questions at the end. So Artsmark, yes, we know what it is. And who are we? A New Direction. I really hope you're familiar with us at A New Direction. And this isn't a sales pitch. So much of what we do to connect young people with culture is free of charge. And we have a fantastic website that actually shows you all the different opportunities. We work with schools, we work with the cultural sector, and we also have Create Jobs, which is all about work experience and opportunities in the creative industries for people across London. If you haven't already done so, go to our website and sign up for our newsletter. So thanks, Sam. On to Artsmark. I think most of you will know that Artsmark is a mark given by the Arts Council England. It's all about assessing where you already are with your arts provision and then setting a plan which over the coming 2 years, you would then develop, you would deliver your action plan, and you would celebrate your provision in arts and cultural education. So anybody who was familiar with the old pre-2015 Artsmark might remember a kind of retrospective audit. This is much more forward thinking and developmental. 3 levels, silver, gold or platinum. Your award is valid for 2 years, and we've got quite a number of settings. This is a national picture, so 5,500 settings. Sam, can we have the next one? So this, I think, is the most valuable diagram, and I can get Sam to send you these slides so you don't have to make frantic notes. If you haven't seen this already, it shows you the cyclical nature of Artsmark, from the registration and then coming to the development training, and those 2 bits of paperwork that you put in, your statement of commitment and intent with your action plan, and then those 2 years, it's a long time to be able to really develop, evaluate, and then at the end write about the impact that your activity has had. Because I think it's right with all of us, we don't do these things for nothing. We want to make a difference, and that's what Artsmark is trying to reflect. So having got your Artsmark award, as I said, you have it for 2 years, and at any point within those 2 years, you can re-register and go all through the cycle again. The cost of it is £500. If you're a small school that is fewer than 100 students, it's £250. And for that, obviously, you're getting all the support that I'm going to talk about from the bridge, in this case, A New Direction. Next one, please, Sam. This is the real nitty-gritty of the Artsmark. These are the criteria that you may well have thought about. If you're doing Artsmark, you'll be really familiar with them. If you're not doing Artsmark already, this is a really interesting way to look at your arts provision, not just in terms of the art forms that you're offering, the classic music, art and design, drama, dance, and so on, but also, what about leadership for the arts? That one that sits at the bottom, really important, equality and diversity. That's going to be so big over the coming years, where people are looking at the curriculum. C and YP engagement, what on earth is that? That's really pupil voice. And when Stephen was talking about getting a student board so that young people have a voice in this whole partnership, that's really something that you can look at within this Artsmark framework. So if you look at that self-assessment framework, you can download it from the Artsmark website. You can download it from our website. You can do that whether you've registered or not. It's a free document and it's a fantastic auditing tool so that you can look at your provision and see, is this something we want to go for or not? Next one, please, Sam. Quality principles. I'm not going to talk about these at great length, but how do you measure quality? This is what the Arts Council think the principles should be. And I'm not going to read them out, but you can see there are one or two quite interesting ones there. What is an authentic arts experience for you? What does it mean to involve children and young people in the arts provision? Belonging and ownership. They're great principles and they act as a really good evaluation framework, apart from anything else. Moving on. Artsmark partners. Now, you've already been looking at some of your partners in Bexley. Obviously, there are a large number of Artsmark partners in London and across the country. They're organisations who've actually done an Artsmark training. So they know what you are going to do on your Artsmark journey and they can then support you. You don't have to work with Artsmark partners. You can work with anyone you like, but you know that these partners will have a knowledge of the process. And if you want to see who you might work with, Look Up is our database. If you search for A New Direction, Look Up, you'll come across a really fantastic platform where you can search by area, by key stage, by art form, and you can also filter for Artsmark partners. Okay, moving on. This is what I'm really here to tell you about. This is what we can offer you. Now, if you're on the Artsmark journey, or even if you're just thinking about it, you can book a one-to-one phone call, which you can access on our website. And these are 15-minute calls. Often they go on a bit longer than that, with one of our Artsmark consultants. That's myself or my colleague, Sonia Hyams. You can get feedback on your paperwork. You can just have a general chat about Artsmark if you want to. You can have as many as you like. So if you're thinking about doing it and just want more advice, you're already doing it and you want some help, come to us. Now, this next one is interesting from the Bexley point of view because we run support surgeries where we bring people together to talk about their Artsmark journeys. We can do them on a sort of borough level. So we could actually decide in Bexley in the next year, we would like to bring everybody together. You can talk about what you're doing, inspire each other, share practice, share ideas about partners that you've worked with, and give each other support. So that's something that we can really bear in mind, I think, as we go through the year. We've got some lovely events, Artsmark Connects, Creative Insets. All of these are on our website. We bring together the Artsmark partners and the schools. And we used to be face to face and have things like wine and chatter. It's a bit more online now, but we're hoping that in the coming year we'll go back to the fun stuff. The inset's great though; it's free. Live CPDs. Some of them are also recorded, so have a look at that because they're great resources. And finally, talking about resources, if you're doing Artsmark already, you can find toolkits. All kinds of resources about evaluating impact. You can find resources that support you with the self-assessment framework criteria. You can find blogs and you can find Look Up. So here we go. Next slide, please, Sam, sorry. I'm not going to go through this, but there's a couple of schools there that have talked about what they've got out of Artsmark. They've both written a blog. One is a special school, Woodfield in Brent, and one is a secondary school in Haringey, that's Alexandra Park. If we send you these slides, you can have a look at them in your own time. And so I think on to the final one. Next steps. If you want to register for Artsmark, you can go onto their website. I would suggest maybe you want to talk to us first, but you don't have to. You can go directly to that website and register. When you do, you'll then be referred to us for the next steps. You can subscribe to our newsletter. Please do, because there's loads in it and most of it's free, as I said. And you can you can have a look at the lookup. It's got a notice board function as well as a database of partners. That was a bit of a whirlwind because I'm parachuting in and I know you've got lots to cover and some of you know this stuff already. I'd be really happy to answer your questions or take your comments either through the chat or if you want to put your hand up, or if, Sam, if you're moderating, or Stephen moderating the session. Those are our contact details. Yeah, oh, that's nice. I can see everyone now. It's lovely. Yeah, questions, comments?
Thank you, Lynn. That's brilliant. I suppose just to reassure everyone, this is a whole school process, isn't it? So I guess if someone's here today who is leading an art subject in a school, it's not something you would do alone. This is a process that's overseen by, probably a senior leader in a school because this is a whole school endeavour, isn't it?
That is such a good point, Stephen, because when you come to the development training, which is the first sort of stage on the journey, you bring the Artsmark contact person, who would typically be an arts specialist, but you also bring a member of senior leadership team. And that then gets the buy-in from the very beginning, that initial planning, finding out about how the process works. You've got that from the very start. And I would absolutely endorse the idea that the schools that are most successful in this Artsmark process are those where there is a whole school buy-in. And I know that can be more challenging in some schools, particularly secondary schools, where maybe people work in a more departmental way. But the more you can actually bring everybody on board over the 2-year journey, the more successful you're going to be in showing the impact.
No, thank you. And do you think, thinking about workload for it, because I know that's really important, isn't it? We're all coming out of COVID and it's it's challenging. Would you say from your experience that schools have found it demanding workload wise, or do you think it's pretty much it's business as usual, but you're just going to be capturing this for your impact statement, which is going to be, I suppose, a collaborative endeavour anyway? It's not going to be put on one person's shoulders to write that.
Well, that would be the ideal, definitely. I don't think it's, I wouldn't want to underestimate the commitment that you would need to put into it. You can see, you're looking at your arts provision across the school as it is and how you want it to be. That is a commitment, but nonetheless, if it is shared out across the whole school, I would say absolutely. It doesn't have to be a huge endeavour. The key for me is in the monitoring and evaluation framework. If you plan that in at the very beginning, so that you know what it is that you're measuring, you know what you're capturing, you know how you're going to evaluate it over those 2 years, you don't leave it till, the rescue mission at the end of the journey, then that will actually make your life so much simpler if you're already on this or if you're thinking of doing it.
That's really good advice. Thank you. And Howard's asked the question in the chat, is the expectation that showing impact should be whole school and not just within arts subjects? In terms of, I guess that you would be, I suppose you want to have a whole school impact, don't you, through your Artsmark? That's why we do it. We want to amplify the role arts, culture and creativity plays.
Yes, you do.
Cool.
But I take the point, though, that, as I said, it can be more difficult in a secondary school where you've got departments where possibly, there isn't a lot of connection between, the arts and the maths and the science departments. Ideally, you would want to see that, and it would be built into the values and ethos of the school, which is one of those key criteria. But I think it is also measured by things like, increased participation, people take up of art subjects in secondary schools. And I think the Arts Council are quite realistic about what you're going to achieve. It's not necessarily going to be transformational so that every teacher has got some sort of arts content in all their lessons. But yes, you want to see you want to see impact, and you want to see some strong partnership working and some good CPD that would potentially be inclusive.
Has anyone got any questions? Well, we've got the wisdom of Lynn in the room. Feel free to write anything in the chat. I mean, have you got any examples of MATs, so multi-academy trusts, who have worked on Artsmark? Because I know Artsmark is obviously done by individual school. So even if you're in a trust, you can't do it as a trust. You still have to do individual schools. But have you seen any trusts that have been able to, where you might have a pair of schools that have worked together whilst they're on the journey simultaneously, doing it independently, but they've been able to collaborate?
Yes, there's one at the moment that I'm working with called the Elliott Foundation. It's quite a small trust. It's only 8 schools, not all of them in London, but they've worked with an arts organisation and with us. And yeah, they're going through the journey together. They do have one school which has acted as, I suppose, a lead school, which I suppose is quite helpful, because that coordinating role means that, you know, every now and again you get somebody who convenes the check-in and, you know, where are we now, and just a sort of a little bit of a chivvy or something that is more in the line of support and, you know, networking. So yes, I think it can work, and definitely you have like federations and where it's, I think where schools buddy up, it really, you know, a borough level, certainly I've seen that happen in local authority boroughs as well, where, you know, somebody takes, like yourselves, you take the lead and you really support the schools and offer opportunities for them to come together if they want them. Yeah.
Thank you. And then one final quick question, because I know you've got to dash. How important is it having a governor connected to this work, do you think, in your setting? So having a governor who helps be connected to the Artsmark process?
Well, if you want a platinum Artsmark, one of the criteria is that you do nominate an arts and culture governor. Although I understand that in some schools, the governing body sort of model it differs, doesn't it? Every school has their own model. So it's a sort of an equivalent to that. And some schools don't want just one person. They want all the governors. But I think, I mean, yes, absolutely. It's fantastic when governors get involved. And when you actually, I think the really nice models are where you have students talking to governors. And so you have that student voice linking in with what the governors are doing, and then you can see the comeback from that, and you can see it reflected in governors' minutes, you know, from their meetings, that they've discussed Artsmark and that governors have been in to visit and look at some of the arts activity, or possibly even, you know, work in partnership with an arts partner. So yeah, I think I've also seen models the other way, where an arts organisation actually nominates somebody to be a school governor. So you have that kind of link as well, and I think that can be super successful when
that's a great idea
when it works. Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm stealing that one.
With the Artsmark Partnership Programme, I think one of the ideas that the Arts Council had originally was, wouldn't it be great if arts organisations could actually spare somebody to go and play that role? And I've been a governor, I know how demanding it is, but nonetheless, to have that kind of link is really, really positive and strong. So yeah, I would say wherever possible, creative governors, yes, please. Maybe even at borough level, we could have an initiative in Bexley for every school to have an arts and culture governor.
We'll add it to the list. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Just something really else for you to do.
No,
listen, it's been great. What I'm going to do, I will put my email in the chat as well, in case anybody's got a question, but they just don't know what it is yet. And then you can always contact me. I'd be more than happy to respond to you. If you're already on the Artsmark journey, I think you know where to find me, but I'm always happy to answer questions. And
thank you, Lynn.
People on the phone. I wish you, sorry, I have to dash, but I wish you a very successful end meeting. And off I go.
See you soon. Thanks, Lynn. Bye. And so I think certainly on our schools, Maggie and Kerry, we're going to, you know, register for our journey. And I think just the timeline is, obviously in our particular settings, we have senior leaders who are overseeing the arts. So they are the first point of contact. But the way it works is once you've registered, you have 3 months to attend your development day. And then after your 3 months of attending your development day, you have to submit your statement of intent. So it's quite a spacious process, and it's so much a collaboration across teams. And it's so wonderful now to have Naomi Lord here, who bang on time. We're nearly just minutes for. Naomi and I, we met on a Royal Opera House Leaders for Impact course we've just done. So it's been fantastic to learn about Naomi's work. And I'll let Naomi introduce herself. But I thought it's really useful to hear from Lynn about the Support by New Direction, who is our bridge organisation that gives schools who are going to begin their Artsmark journey. Naomi can tell us about, because she's done the journey, and congratulations, Naomi achieved platinum for her setting, and I'm sure she'll get it again. But Naomi's here today to really talk us through what she did, her journey, and it's a chance for any of us here to ask questions to Naomi about that process. So Naomi, over to you. You've got a flashy title. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Nice Hello everybody. It's really lovely to be here in Artsmark Celebration Week to tell you about the work that we've done here. You're going to hear my setting roll past us any second because the bell's just gone for the end of school. So there's going to be a stampede of children. So forgive the noise and the rumblings for a moment. Stephen, am I able to share my screen? Super.
Yep, I think Sam's made you co-host.
I've made you co-host, so you should be able to do that. Let me know if any issues.
Perfect. Thanks, Sam.
There's a range of things that I'm going to rattle through, and I'm happy to talk about the detail of any of these things if you'd like to pick up conversation afterwards. The presentation that I'm sharing with you was a case study presentation on behalf of Curious Minds that I made in 2018. And the purpose of sharing this is to, as I talk, demonstrate where we've moved from 2018 to demonstrate Artsmark as a rolling process, and one that we're really invested in, and one that keeps paying dividends in our setting. So I'm going to track some of the things I talk about against our last round case study, and also note that there's been a shift from case study to statement of impact, and I think that that's an important shift. In terms of why Artsmark was the right decision for us in this setting, there's a whole load of reasons that are up there on the screen, and some of them are outdated, some of them are very much of their time, but they're all broadly similar, and there are things that I think are still relevant now, and things that have shifted slightly. So for instance, there are things on there that relate to arts in higher education, and you may have seen in the news recently the shift to the idea of capping arts degrees based on the percentage of graduates that can pay back their student loans. So there are things on there in terms of responding to the broader impact of EBAC, or Russell Group having a facilitating list. There's still important elements of advocacy in the broader sense of why Artsmark was an important decision for us, but linking this to the setting that I'm in and why it was right for us. I work in an independent boys' school in the Northwest. It's a big day school, and I'm very lucky to work in this setting, but it was very much focused on STEM success, and it was an environment that wasn't arts rich. As I go on to talk about a range of other things, I'll talk about how that shift from STEM to have more of a sense of a creative school that's allied with STEM has happened here, but also work that we do in partnership and work that we do across different settings to share our cultural capital. I'm also talking very much from a secondary standpoint, and I'm not sure if there are primary colleagues here, but certainly I can talk about our junior divisions and work that we do with primaries in our area. So what I would add to this list of why Artsmark is the right decision for us, again, is pointing to 2020 as a year of activism renaissance, and there being so many, yes, arts emergency, but climate emergency, and a prevalence of onus on equal rights, Black Lives Matters in the foreground of the summer of 2020, and that this plays a relevancy in how our creative delivery can play out too. So in terms of relevancy, I point to content, yes, in terms of broad arts provision, but how that content is held in relevancy of concerns with young people now, and I'll speak about that a little bit more later on, that our process and our pedagogy as creative arts practitioners can also take in those broad common threads too. And I think, and I hope that I can explain in a few projects that I'll point to later on, that our arts practice and working through Artsmark and the quality principles that come with it is illustrative of helps us illustrate the world that we wish to live in terms of arts practice and careers, but also broadly in terms of diversity matters, SMSC, and so on. Let me tell you a little bit about how we began. And the process that we go through in each Artsmark round. So our process of beginning Artsmark in our school was very much a case of an approach to the head to ask if this is something that he would consider. And I heard the tail end of the conversation, previous conversation about platinum status requiring a supporting governor. And I think that in terms of approaching the head and acquiring governor support from the get-go was incredibly important, regardless of the aim of silver or gold or platinum Artmark, from the point of view of really investing in whole school systems and whole school delivery and visibility and the prominence of work. So the conversation began there, and the development day process is important too in terms of understanding between teachers and staff about what's involved. I think that what would have been really useful to do for us before that, for the first time, was not just to work out where we were on the Artsmark rubric, but to really go through an auditing process of where we were on that, using the quality principles and being primed in that sense before we headed to that development meeting. However, each year, never mind each Artsmark year, what we do is like bring our work back to the table and audit it together. And we audit it against the quality principles that are given by Artsmark of excellence, diversity and inclusion. And there's 7 of them. And looking at what we do and placing those quality principles against what we do helps us to identify gaps. And then we start to talk about the gaps. So it's a great conversation about what we do well and celebrating it, but identifying the gaps is really important. And it's also important in terms of practice and innovation and an opportunity for people to express going concerns, interests, things that they spot. So I think that it's really useful to think about the development day, what you record on your statement of commitment as a guide, but to anticipate that that's a changing process because it's a creative process. and that looking for the gaps and looking for elements that destabilize those plans is as valuable as getting your head teachers and governors to support what you've got down on those plans too. So we audit against the quality principles, and just in an admin sense, it's really useful to record what you do against those quality principles and to put your plans against those quality principles, because when you're writing it up in your statement of impact, you're just, as you move forward through meetings and planning, you're just adding to something that you can transpose across. It's also, when you're writing that statement of impact, a little bit gutting that you have to reduce all of the wonderful things that you've done down to 150 words, 500 words, and so on. So if there's, if it's more of a minuting process, I think it's much easier to measure as you go along, and saves a task at the end. It's also a useful circular document to explain to people where you're up to. The other thing that I add into that auditing process is the main school objectives, and by hook or by crook, finding relevancy for what we're doing in terms of creative learning, what we're doing in arts, and demonstrating that relevancy. That relevancy might be in terms of arts practice as enrichment, but I'll step into talking about teaching for creativity too, which I'm sure you've heard plenty from New Direction on. But hugely important as a narrative to explain Artsmark work in a whole school capacity. So in terms of Artsmark development and creative arts subjects in school, we have looked at range, and we've looked at visibility, and we've looked at events, and all of those things are very important, but they were for us standard in terms of what we were doing. And the auditing process became about looking at emergent art forms, looking at range, looking at niche, and that indicating CPD for staff, that also indicating relevancy, and in terms of emergent media that's more relevant to age and stage and interest and generation of the people that we're working with. And it also is a way where it's a way into looking at where we work with others, where we work with freelancers, and where we commission work. So if we can't provide it in-house, what's happening elsewhere? And that also is a step into industry experience for our young people too, and starts to create a narrative about careers and purpose. Outside of arts practice, moving back to whole school impact of Artsmark, the common threads in all schools are I think the things to hang development process onto. So we work with careers, we work with our literacy lead, we work within the pastoral curriculum, SMSC, RSC topics, with the diversity agenda in school, to generate work that finds its way into lots of areas of school life using creative activities. Creative activities as a lead in those areas. In addition to, I suppose, using arts as a vehicle in those areas, we've started to underpin teaching for creativity in those areas by, in the first phase, sharing Lucas and Spencer's skills creative habits through those activities, and starting to create a vernacular and something that's visible in the resourcing. In relation to creating that school vernacular, taking that language of creativity and dovetailing it with the language that's commonplace in your school or within school ethos has certainly been important for us. So there's lots of vocabulary that staff and schools use informally and formally for skills, and importing a new set of language related to creativity and or the arts can feel like loading up. So character education is very important here. It's a leadership pathway that runs through school, and the language of that character work is very similar to those creativity terms. So we've dovetailed those, and to a certain extent, I suppose our teaching for creativity grew out of character work in PSHE sessions, in pastoral work, but it was certainly a place where our young people learnt those terms before we pushed that agenda and the CPD that needed to come with it, and the prevalence of those terms and teaching plan to those terms in classrooms. It might be useful to talk across both whole school and arts practice about who we work in partnership with to augment whole school practice and arts practice. So I mentioned earlier about looking for gaps in our arts provision and plugging that with commissioning, or we work in partnership with our local theatre, for instance. In addition to that, taking on those whole school strands, we've worked with Manchester Writing School, which is part of the university, with their MA students to create creative writing residencies to work along a literacy line, and that I think conversations with creative departments in universities and looking at how you might cross over with their, I suppose, what they're providing for their students is, let's say, for instance, a range of MA students in that situation wanting to be able to add to their CVs that they're able to deliver school sessions, meant that that was something that the university were happy to plan with us and to deliver in school, and something that we then run on World Book Day. So it's not ostensibly out of creative arts. It is in partnership. It isn't costing us anything. It has literacy benefit.
Amy, can I jump in for a moment?
Yes, of course.
Sorry, it's fascinating. It's brilliant. I wanted to ask you, what role does your bridge organisation play in brokering those connections? Some of these partnerships, or did you kind of jump and kind of write to them or contact them, or did you go through your bridge organisation or your CEP? Because I know you're involved in CEP.
I'm rogue in the sense of where our partnerships come in from, because I think Twitter and Instagram as a medium to keep track of creative opportunities are invaluable, and asking a direct question is incredibly important. And by and large, most of the things that we do and some of our major programs have come from sending a direct message and saying, hi, can we have a chat about this? In terms of other possible connections, our bridge provides a map of MPOs, and it's really good to have a conversation about what do you provide for schools on the basis of this is part of how you receive your funding. There's a percentage of work that you're anticipating doing with schools. What is it, and can we participate in it? University-wise, it's very much asking questions, but also I think attendance at events, being part of things that are happening, talking to people there, and just being part of like either a digital or in-person networking policy. I think certainly being in lockdown was there was a real flurry of opportunity, and I think that just took the possibilities of who we collaborate with and how we collaborate with them into just whole new possibilities. And I think for no other reason than we just hadn't been that ambitious, because we hadn't spent all of our time on Zoom. So it became that it's obvious to start up a conversation with anybody, anywhere in the world, and to draw that in as benefit. I'd also say in terms of freelance and commissioning work and all of that kind of stuff, that there's a really great economy to tap into in terms of getting people to speak on Zoom, commissioning video work that you can use over and over again for delivery of sessions. And we've got lots of examples of stuff like that we're happy, that I'd be more than happy to share. So for instance, in terms of whole school delivery, one of the things that was really important in terms of all of those strands of careers, literacy, pastoral, etc., was like, where do you fit all of that into the school day? And asking that question repeatedly, we ended up having a fortnightly session which is called Space. Like, we're making space for these things to happen that don't fit into lessons, and our primary colleagues in our junior schools find it much easier to plan or to put a day aside, but with a secondary timetable we were finding it hard. So our Space sessions stand for social, physical, active, creative, and entrepreneurship work, and there's lots of things that factor in there, and it's like a prime place to put all of the creative skills through experientially, because a lot of the time there's time for trips there are visitors, so it also becomes live and applied. But for those sessions, we kept those enrichment sessions going, and their whole school for a whole afternoon every 2 weeks. We kept them going through lockdown, through digital video commissioning, and that might be a poet setting several activities, and then taking the work and feeding back on it. There's a colleague that we work with in York music department regularly, and he runs a Foundations of House project, and he put together an activity series and input on the development of house music, but also fit that into the story of the Great Migration and equality issues in the United States. So there are tons of things that you can do by asking people and working the in-person cost down to a Zoom call or something that can be recorded, that we use in different ways over and again.
Gosh, thank you, Naomi. I feel like you've got so much brilliant. Thank you so much for today, because I feel like
no problem.
I mean, it's brilliant actually, because I think what you've demonstrated is that Artsmark, and also I think your work is already brilliant. So it wasn't. I don't think Artsmark made it, but in a way, it's an enabling factor, isn't it, to get that conversation of a whole school level. And I love how you've mobilised the arts to support those broader agendas across the school. But also, I suppose it's really it's exciting to hear how you've built on, or and you've actively gone out to find work from partners that can get brilliant, bring brilliant opportunities to the students. So thank you for sharing that, because I think it's really inspiring to see that actually it takes a lot of entrepreneurialism, doesn't it, to go out there and find. And I think we do that as artists instinctively, don't we? So the people on the call who are arts teachers, we do that. So thank you for today. And I imagine there's some questions. Maggie, do you want to jump in? But thank you, Naomi. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That was really interesting. I just think, how did you ask SLT to have a half a day every 2 weeks? How did that? How did you attack that one?
Great question, Maggie.
I think that it was demonstrating that there was a critical mass of people that needed time for particular things, and it could be dealt with most effectively and succinctly in that way, and that placing 2 blank squares on a timetable would also innovate and provide far more than they would get if we slotted things into form periods or attempted to do these things at lunchtime or at the end of the school day. So it was you're going to get this much bang for your buck, give us this bit and you'll get all of that. The amount of stuff that goes on in there is phenomenal in terms of charity work and volunteering as well.
Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you so much. It seems to go beyond Artsmark then. It seems to be bigger than, well, I thought Artsmark just umbrellas everything, but even to being charity involved and everything on that, on a weekly basis or every other week basis just sounds absolutely amazing.
And you should follow the Twitter feed. I don't know if you want to put it in your
oh yes, please. I'd love to.
If you just follow Naomi's work, really, it's brilliant. You see, like, I mean, Naomi's very busy, but I mean, lots of great things are going on.
The colleague that timetables space and deals with all of that is very busy.
Yeah, I think you'll see there's brilliant things going on.
But I would certainly say that that's a patch in our school week, in our school 2-week timetable that demonstrates Artsmark in its fullest, because it is a great space for for creative arts work to happen. So for instance, our year 9s are on a carousel at the moment where they go and they're visiting mills to take photography, but they're also learning about the Industrial Revolution at the People's History Museum, and then they're bringing it together in an installation in another session. But it's also the applied opportunities there, and that's the real vehicle for creative language, creative skills and creative habits. And that's the place where staff are, their mindsets are out of their silos, at the very least they're like ready to collaborate in a cross-curricular way, so it makes a huge amount of sense. And on that note of applied, I think it's really useful to key into the RSA People Design Awards, because the design cycles that are student-led, that are based on social projects, link across to all of that language of creative habits. But it also is so firmly embedded in diversity and inclusion, pupil voice, and the projects are designed to be relevant to secondary school pupils. And so you could run them as live projects in your school, which is what we're trying to do at the moment.
And they're great, because I've shared them with our assistant head who's running, because the briefs this year are on sustainability is one of them. And I've shared them with our head of outdoor education at King Henry, one of our other schools, because it just resonates with work that's going on. And I think that is very much what Artsmark is about, really. It's not about art subjects doing lots of stuff. It's showing that your whole school can embrace the arts, culture, creativity to enable lots of things. So thank you, Naomi. It's been brilliant what you shared today so generously, and I really appreciate, it's the end of the school day, so thank you for everyone who's been here.
Pleasure. I'll put my details in the chat.
Yeah,
and if you're interested in any of the work that we do that embeds creative skills in other subject areas, so for instance, we're just starting to do to draw the skill sets across into COP activities and all of that kind of stuff. Just send me a message and I'll send you some things across.
Thank you, Naomi. And everyone, thank you so much, Naomi, and everyone who's been here today. And we just got a couple of minutes left, but we will share Lynn's slides, Naomi's slides, But I guess this is very much the beginning. And what Sam and I will do when we send you an email, I guess it's whether or not, do you want to come back again? Do we catch up again and chat about Artsmark? Because if you might be on your journey already, you might be thinking about it. So whether or not this group, we want to be a support network to share ideas as we go through this journey together. But certainly what Sam and I will do is just send a few, as well as the stuff from today, just a few questions to see, shall we meet again? How can we as a cultural education partnership help? Because we have got New Direction, who is very much about supporting schools, signposting things. But I suppose what we offer is that local knowledge. So we have a group of partners in our area. We don't have NPOs, National Portfolio Organisations in Bexley. Manchester does, but we don't have any in Bexley. But certainly we have a group of partners who are keen to work with schools. So I guess if you are on your journey and you wanted to know what's in your area, who can support that journey, do get in touch with Sam, who emailed you today with the link for the session, and he can help and certainly start to connect things. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here. It's really great to see you all, and we'll keep the conversation going and we'll be in touch via email. But thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thank you, Stephen, for organising that. It was really, really useful. Thank you.
No pleasure.
Thanks, Stephen. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, Howard.
Thanks, everyone.
And feel free to press stop